We're going to get started. I know it's after lunch and 1, so we'll leave plenty of time for questions. So, my name is Ed Kitchen. I'm the Technology Integration Specialist at Big Walnut, which is just above Westerville. Taught math for 23 years and have done plenty of presenting with smartboards and calculators and Google. And so I'm bringing our first grade teacher, Lindsey, here. She's going to show you what her and a few others kind of come up with a 21st century classroom. And if you want to see one, this is one you want to look at with Chromebooks and QR codes, and first graders really controlling the classroom. She's going to get in some nuts and bolts about it. We definitely want to leave some questions towards the end in terms of obviously how do we come up with a classroom set of Chromebooks, this, that, and the other. That's the stuff you really want to get from her. So again, we'll have plenty of time for questions towards the end.
Well, like he said, my name's Lindsey Simmons. I've been teaching for 7 years in first grade and about 9 years total. Can you guys hear me? Does that work? Okay. So a lot of the stuff that I've done is a little bit of ideas that I've taken along the way and kind of put together and then integrated, obviously, technology and new things that have come out. So last year, at the end of the year, I was challenged by TRECA to, they had a research and development project, and so they said to write a proposal and to think outside of the box with a 21st century classroom that focus on personalization, student growth, and engagement, sorry. And so this is what I came up with. I've got a little video for you to start, so.
One of the greatest things about it is you can walk in at any given time and there's just a certain flow in the room. When you look at our school day, our #1 priority is inspiring and getting them to their maximum potential, and so we have X amount of time to do that. And I think this is a great model to where you're maximizing that time frame. And one of the reasons I think the students are so engaged is that everything is geared toward their specific needs. So in the grand scheme of things, every student is getting exactly what they need.
We admire the program's ability to make accurate individual assessments, which allows the teacher to address specific needs without the common broad-based approach.
I think my favorite thing is how individualized it is and how she can be reading or doing her math at her level and not at somebody else's level that maybe is a little bit too low or someone who is maybe a little bit too high.
It's just the way of the future, like it or not, that's where we are all going. And in order to meet their needs, we've got to be flexible and change the model to fit what's going on in reality.
Yeah, we can go back on it, sorry. All right, so you saw that my room's very different. And I have Christmas lights hanging, we have bean bags, rocking chairs. I don't have any desks, so we have tables, and so the kids are able to sit wherever they want. And so that's a big part of their day, is that they get to choose wherever they'd like to sit, and so they can get comfy. So I had to think of a title for my model, and so it's called the SIMMONS Model, and that's stations and small groups individualized to meet and monitor ongoing needs and strengths. And so some of those words have multiple meanings, like meeting their needs and also actually physically meeting with them. So I will explain a little bit more as we go. Well, I'm going to start with the data so you can see why I'm here and why I wanted to share this with a lot of you. And this graph is hard to, can you guys see the different colors? Okay. In August, when my kids came in, I did running records and assessed all my kids. And so when they came in, I found out that I had 75% of my kids were below level in reading. I was a little panicked at first. And then 10% were above and 15% were at level. And then in November, I did my running records again with my students, and at that point, 50% of my kids were above level, and only 23% were below, while 27 were at level. So there was such a tremendous amount of growth with my students along the way, so we just kept going because of the amazing amount of growth that we've had. With this slide, this is just some more data, and I love data, so if you love data, this is totally for you. So on the one side, I have all the assessments that we were given, and you probably can't see because it's kind of dark, but the second column, it's data from 2012, 2013, August to January, and that is the traditional classroom. That was my classroom from last year. And so what I did was I just added up all of my baseline data from August, and then I did their tests again, or their scores in January, and then I compared the amount of growth, and then I found out the increase of growth for that year. Then I did the same thing for this year. So the last column is this year, so August to January, my baseline data, and then I saw how much my students had increased on their percentages. And as you can see, they are tremendous amounts of growth. So phoneme segmentation, 25 to 61, 43 to 109. And the first one that I figured out of this was the first one, 25 to 61, and I was so excited. I thought that was amazing. And then I get to like the last one, the math computation, 81 to 398%. So they are making so much growth along the way, and it's just fabulous. One other thing I wanted to point out is a lot of times you have parents that, if you have some higher level kids, that you get a lot of phone calls and a lot of questions about their child not being challenged. And this is the first year where I haven't had that. All of the learning that we have along the way is individualized to their learning and the path that they are on. And so that's something that doesn't happen. So in the video, that was a couple of the parents that wanted to come in and speak because they really liked our model. So how we're different, the stations is how we run the day. And so each of the kids have individual stations, and they have stations in the morning and then stations in the afternoon. I do it with math and with language arts. So during their stations, they may have things where they have a QR code where it's leveled based on their need. So it could be like, yes, we could all be doing addition, but one student may be doing addition at a higher level, and another might be doing it, with manipulatives or with pictures. So, during using the QR codes, I can easily put the web address, make a QR code, and then all they have to do is hold it up, scan it, and then they go right to where they need to go. So you have a lot less problems of kids typing in web addresses. And with my proposal, I got 25 Chromebooks for my classroom, and so that's what we've been using for our technology. A big part of our day is also the celebration portion and setting goals. And I really think that, with us, even as adults, when we set goals, we have somewhere to shoot for. We have somewhere to go. And so with us, at the beginning of the year, we started making goals that were just personal ones maybe because it was the beginning of the year. So some kids said, I want to make a new friend. Some kids maybe said, I want to learn how to read better. And so now we're taking it where instead of just using things that they might come off the top of their head, we're using our data from our programs and we're looking at it together, which is something I've never done before. But we're looking at the data together, and then they are choosing like, oh, Mrs. Simmons, I really need to work on this area. And so we're writing that down and we're focusing on that. So they actually can take ownership for that. So it's no longer on just me. They are taking ownership for their learning. Then the celebrating piece is during the day I have little slips that they are allowed to fill out because as they do a lot of these programs, they get very excited and they want to share all of it with you. And unfortunately, you're doing a small group, then you're teaching and you're instructing. And so if they are coming up all the time, that's a little distracting. So they are allowed to fill out one celebration slip a day. Doesn't always happen if they just do one, but they fill out exactly what they did and what they're excited about. And each kid's levels are different. So one celebration might not be as high as somebody else's, but we get excited about every little step that we make along the way. And so we start our morning and we go through our celebration slips and we get excited, and that just starts our day off on a really positive note. And so why it works, all of the instruction is individualized. So I have a couple sections in my day where I do a little mini lesson, but for the most part, everything is broken down into small groups. So that really helps to individualize their learning. The next part focused on student growth. So that is really based on all of the data that I get, keeping them accountable, keeping them having ownership for their stuff, like I talked about, and it's engaging. And that's because everything is on their level. So there's no chance for them to get bored or a chance for them to, for something to be too difficult. And you know, the thing is this is not new to them. They're, you know, the term digital natives, they know how to use this stuff. So they are very good at manipulating the technology, even better sometimes than we are, which is surprising sometimes. The second part that I think is super helpful is the parent involvement. So a lot of these programs that I use that do have parent accounts, so parents can access the websites and the kids can get on at home. They also are able to look at their kids' reports. And so I feel like this year parents know more about their kids than, you know, in the past, because report card is a piece of paper, but these reports give them very detailed data. And as well as me, I can get all the data as well that was not there for me before. All right, so the day, like I said, morning meeting that's when we actually start the day. We have a message, go through calendar or smart board, and then that's when we do our celebrations and our goals. A big part of the day that I really think impacts the day is the transition. So I have a daily classroom playlist, and it is the Madagascar Move It Move It song that they move during transitions, and so it's just a little portion of it. And so there's that song, they move, and then after that there's like 15 minutes of classical music. And so the thing is, you know, there was a lot of training where during that song you can dance if you want to, you can get your supplies, but when the song ends, you have to be seated, you have to be doing your work. And then, so after a while, you know, training with that, they got to the point where, you know, they're sitting down and the classical music starts and they are working. And so the big part with that is that maximizes instruction time, because I'm no longer having to yell out things to tell kids what to do. They just know. They know where to go from their station schedule, and then they also, when I'm sitting at a group with people, I can also start right when the kids sit down. I don't have to wait, you know, for everybody else to be quiet. But there's very clear expectations, so they know. You know, at the beginning it was a lot of training on, you know, if you got to get to your spot so you can get a point, that kind of a thing. And I'll talk about points in a little bit. And so I call them Smartie stations. I don't know if any of you have heard of Donna White, but she called her kids Smarties, and I decided that I liked that term, so I'm kind of using that. And during the stations, small groups is the most important part of it. That is when I can level my kids and keep them in a group based on the skills that they need to work on. So of course, I can do guided reading groups during that time. I do sight word groups sometimes. I could do letters and letter sounds, anything with math. So it's really open to anything. Even this last time that I regrouped kids, I have a writing group. So it just depends on your needs of your kids. And it's not always the kids that need help. It's also kids that need enriched as well, and maybe need some extensions. So like I said, I do that for math and for language arts. Here's a transition. You can't see, but they're all sitting. Lights, yeah, thanks.